All right, scan for Japanese. I don't speak Japanese, so I need my slides, and there they are. Okay, facility peer groups powered by Clearscape Analytics. That's what we're eventually going to talk about, but in order to understand why I'm standing before you today, we need to go back to February the 14th, 2014, Valentine's Day, because that is when my love affair with HCA began. I was a lowly associate application engineer. That is the bottom rung at HCA. But I tell you, I made a critical decision on my first day of work, and it has led me to where I am today. I decided that I was going to operate like Cincinnatus. Now, does anybody know who Cincinnatus is? My man, we got a history student here today. I love it. Cincinnatus was a Roman consul, and in 458 BC, the Equines attacked the Roman army and surrounded them. It was a really bad situation. And so the Roman Senate sought for somebody who could deliver these troops from harm's way. And so they decided it would be Cincinnatus. Now, Cincinnatus was a farmer. They sent messengers to him. He immediately put down his plow, took up his senatorial toga, raised an army, and even though he was supposed to be dictator for 6 months, in 15 days, he was able to defeat his enemies. He disbanded his army. He gave up his dictatorial power, and he went back to farming. This is the Cincinnatus ideal. Crisis reveals character. When I first began at HCA, I was asked to build a lineage application. Now, I will level with you, lineage isn't the sexiest opportunity you're going to get, but it is the one that fell to me. We had 150 reports, and we had no idea if we changed our data, what was going to happen. And so I built this lineage application, which took all this chaotic stuff and made a very easy to use application out of it. And at that time, I was told by my manager that someday he thought I could be a director. And I thought, you are out of your mind. I'm Jason. I'm from Cayuga, Indiana. Don't worry about that. It's just a really, really small town in the middle of a cornfield in rural Indiana. I'm not a director. Like, what are you talking about? But it did put a seed in my mind that maybe if I keep working this way, it's eventually going to pay off. And so what ultimately happened is I got a much larger opportunity, and that's where this idea of duty over ambition, it's doing your job, it's keeping your head down, it's when problems arise, you take care of them. We had a report. It was going out to all of our nursing staff in all, at the time, 185 hospitals. It had not run correctly for 3 months. It was running in another database tool that is located somewhere in California, but it's not Teradata. Okay, I think we know who I'm talking about. And so I decided, even though it wasn't my team, even though it wasn't my responsibility, that I wasn't going to let this stand. And so I found at that time that my Superman power comes through 2 bottles of Mountain Dew in Cool Ranch, or in this case, nacho cheese Doritos. So I go into my vice president's office and I tell her, I say, I'm going to go get 2 Mountain Dews. I'm going to go get some Doritos. And when I come back, I'm going to rewrite this whole program and I won't leave until it's done. I don't know how I did it. I wrote golden code that day. It was beautiful. Started at 12:30, ended at 8:30. Sent everybody a message, we're okay. Nobody has to tell the CIO that this report wasn't working. And it was at that time that the assistant vice president, who's now the vice president, Chris Anthony, took notice of me. He saw that there's something about me, when there was a problem that presented itself, I could solve the problem. And so that leads me to my third point. Reputation is the ultimate currency. When I began, I was an associate application engineer working in IT, supporting what would ultimately be Chris Anthony's organization. When Chris got a director's position open on his team, it took 8 years. But we were in a meeting, it was during COVID, and he said, are you ready to come back? And I said, yes, just give me something to sign. And so I was able to become the director of data and analytics engineering, which honestly I never thought was possible. But then lastly, the goal here is normalization. It's getting back to normal. You have a crisis that happens, you solve the problem, and then you get back to normal. For Cincinnatus, that was farming. For me, it's not 2 cell phones and drinking energy drinks and banging on keys. And obviously this isn't me, but it's drinking a cup of coffee and it's taking a breath and it's leading your team when, your whole building is not on fire. And so I hope that you'll think about these ideals, as whether you're an associate, whether you're an executive, at some point the problem is going to be laid before you, and how you handle that problem is going to determine your future trajectory. And I hope that you, like Cincinnatus, will rise up to the occasion, defeat the enemy, and go back to what is normal. And so with that said, I want to now introduce you to the challenge that was laid before me when I started in this position. I was asked to create a way to quickly compare performance benchmarks. And so given that HCA is a very large hospital corporation, and I'll give you some more information about that in a minute, we couldn't just do a one-size-fits-all type of comparison. It wasn't going to work, because at the end of the day, if you have a really high revenue hospital, it's always going to beat out a really small hospital. And so it's going to make it look like, oh, wow, this one hospital is doing great, when actually they could be very inefficient. It just depends on how you're judging them. And so we were asked to come up with a way to group peers together so we could do fair comparisons. And that's what we call the facility peer group. So at an enterprise level, HCA operates, at the time of this slide being created, 190 hospitals. I've seen that we're up to 198 or 212. The number fluctuates a lot because we do acquire facilities pretty frequently. We operate 2,400 ambulatory sites in 20 different states. And then in addition to all of that, we've got a bunch of Care Now services. We do supply chain with Health Trust, and Parallon does financial services for HCA and for others. In terms of number of hospitals managed, we're number 1. In terms of total beds operated, we're number 1. And we're number 1 in revenue too, but we don't like to talk about that because we're about saving lives. We're not about making money. But if that's a way we judge, then that's another one where we're number 1. We've treated 44 million patients a year. That's over 9 million emergency room visits. We deliver over 200,000 babies a year, and there's 2 million inpatient admissions. So we're big business at HCA Healthcare. We're a very large group, and so we've got to do our best to make sure we're properly grouping our facilities together so that we can make better decisions. Is that at that time, the reason why I was actually given this opportunity is because there was a person who was supposed to be doing all of this work, and that person left the company. And along with them leaving the company, we kind of had to throw the whole plan out the window. And I mean, we kind of got hit by a Mack truck. Now, I don't like Mack truck because, if I had a facility leaving, I'd want it to be on good terms. I don't want them to get murdered by a truck. I'd like to think, hey, they won the lottery, and because they won the lottery, they left, not because they died a horrific death. But in any case, because that happened, there was no code, there was nothing. We had to start over. And so at that same time, we were having some environmental changes that were going on. And if you're interested in learning more about those, plug for my boy Srinivas. He's going to be presenting tomorrow in Gold 2 at 2 p.m. And he's going to talk about how we've been able to move all of our data around as we've been replatforming very, very, very quickly. It's really interesting stuff. If you want to know more about that, 2 p.m. tomorrow, Srinivas is going to talk all about that. But we found Clearscape Analytics. And there was a time where Teradata had this tool called Aster that we were using, and we loved it. And then there wasn't an Aster. And so when we found out that Vantage has Clearscape Analytics, we were really excited because we'd had a lot of success with Aster. And what we really liked about this is instead of trying to find one person who could do all these things, what we were trying to do instead was use tech enablement to empower the people who are on our team to do advanced analytics. And while this person is not on my team, I mean, that's how we feel right now. I mean, we're happy, we're excited, we're getting to do the advanced analytics work. It's not going to another team now. And so we're all really amped up about the opportunities that lay before us because we have this really cool technology in Clearscape Analytics. And so what is the course of action that we took to implement the peer groups? And what I want you to know is that you can do this right now. If you have some things that you want to compare to each other, by the end of this discussion, you will know all the functions that you need to know to implement this. You could literally go back on Friday and probably put this together at least as a POC. So see, I'm your boy. I'm going to do you a solid here. I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. So what is our course of action? Well, the first thing we were introduced to was this really cool free service with Clearscape Analytics. You can go right to Teradata's site, click on Clearscape Analytics, and you get in a virtual environment, and they have all of this information about all these different models that you can create with your own data and test it all out. And so what we found is that they had this one called customer segmentation with K-means. And I thought, well, hey, I know about K-means. It can be used for a lot of things. It can be used in marketing to do customer segmentation. That's kind of what the last guy was talking about. You can do targeted advertising. That's another thing the guy was talking about. In finance, customer segmentation, targeted advertising, that literally says the same thing again. I'm going to fire my proofreader. I'm not going to fire myself. Who am I kidding? We're just going to let that one slide. In healthcare, outbreak detection, patient cohort analysis, drug discovery, in retail, inventory management, store layout optimization, all of these things you can do with what is arguably one of the simplest algorithms to implement, K-means. And so we decided we're going to do K-means clustering. We don't know what everything the person was doing before us, but we knew our forward decision was to do K-means clustering. And so basically what this does, if you are unfamiliar with it, is it tries to make sense out of your data. It's going to look at how things are alike within your data set. And this is an unsupervised learning model, so it's not something that you're going to give it the right answer a bunch of times and then it's going to try to find the right answer. It's trying to make sense of your data when it doesn't know what the answer is. And so ultimately, the goal is to get these cohorts or these like groupings together, and basically anything that falls into one group, that means that they are the same in terms of the measures you were researching. And so if we're going to use k-means clustering, or really any algorithm at all, we need to make sure that we know its assumptions. If you don't know the assumptions, you might come up with what you think is an amazing data science discovery. And you will find that because you broke all the rules of the model, you have nothing. And so k-means, first and foremost, you have to have numbers. That's what you need. You need numbers. You don't need text. That ain't going to work. You do have to address outliers. Sometimes with outliers, it's okay to keep them in. Sometimes it's not. It just really depends on what you're trying to do. But basically, the whole idea of k-means is you're trying to identify the center point of your data. So going back, you're trying to find where the center is amongst all of these different clusters. So if you don't address outliers, sometimes you could get some really wonky results. And we'll talk about how to address that in just a few moments. There's scaling. You want to make sure all your numbers are on the same scale. You want to select k. You do have to say how many clusters you want created. And then there's this idea of it being non-deterministic. And we'll get into how you handle that. But non-deterministic means that you can run something multiple times and you'll get slightly different results. But there's an easy way to handle that with an LLM, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. So the first function you need to do is TD column summary. Y'all write that down, come on now. TD column summary. And so basically, you're going to be investigating your data. And again, what do we say? We need to have all numbers. And so what this is going to do is it's going to quickly summarize all of your fields that you are looking at, and it's going to determine the min, the max, averages, standard deviations. And so what it does is it really helps you with data quality checks. And so why does that matter? It's going to accelerate your model development. If you go into this and you don't address all the problems with your data up front, like everybody talked about this morning, if you don't have good data, you're going to fail in AI. This is what we're talking about. If you're not paying attention to how your data is structured or what kind of data you need to run the algorithm, you're going to fail. And so it matters to make sure that you're meeting all of these prerequisites for the model. And so what we found is that we actually had 2 facilities that didn't have any measures that we were interested in. And so what we did is we removed them from our data and then move forward with the process. And what I really love about Clearscape Analytics in general is that all of these functions are built within the database. They are all high performing, and you get the results in second. And I'm going to literally say this next one on every single advantage point. You could probably repeat it to me. You don't have to move the data. That's the coolest thing about all of this, is you don't have to move the data. You don't have to grab some data from one database and another database and a third database and then bring it on to a centralized location to do some analysis and then spit it out to another location. You can do it all right within your Teradata database. And so you have numbers. You want to deal with outliers. Again, this computes basically a statistics table, and it's looking at percentiles. And so, if something's outside of 2 standard deviations, it's considered an outlier. And so, if that does happen, you have to make a decision on it. Fortunately for us, we didn't have that kind of issue with our data. Everything was pretty well grouped. There weren't anything that was really outrageous, and so we just moved through this step. And again, why is this cool? Robust options. There are ways that you can calculate outliers that I didn't even know you could do. So there's just all kinds of ways to do it. And then what's really cool is you have TD outlier fit, and then instead of fit, you have transform. And so what transform will do is basically process all that data and then put it into a table for you. So at the end of this, you have a clean data set, all the outliers are removed, and you can move forward with your algorithm. We have selection of, we have scaling, with scaling, again, we're trying to make the numbers look similar. We want to normalize the features, and so this is how you do it, and it gives you, again, a table, and everything is normalized at the end of it, so you don't have to move the data, and you get the really cool result that you need to really go into running the k-means algorithm. We have selection of k, and there are times where you can think of data science type of work, and it's science, right? It's very precise and it's very serious, but there can be some artistic license that you can take with k-means. So there is a way that you can figure out how many clusters you should have based upon your data set. It's called the elbow method, and you can see where that elbow lies right there is 4, so you should have 4 clusters. But four clusters didn't work for us. We wanted 5 clusters. And so guess what we set K to? 5. Because again, there's science, but then there's an art. I understand the different sizes of my hospitals. I know that we have really big hospitals, kind of in between hospitals. We have specialty hospitals. We have small hospitals. And so we want it to represent all of those different sizes of hospitals within our clustering algorithm. And so we bumped K up by 1. And the last thing we need to understand is it's non-deterministic. And that just means even with the same input, there are going to be some differences in your result set. Now, what I generally mean by that is one time your cluster is going to be labeled as 1, and the next time your cluster is going to be labeled as 2. That's not that big of a deal. We can overcome that. We're in the age of AI now. This is easy, right? So there are some things you can do within the k-means algorithm to make sure you have consistency in your results. You can use the k-means plus algorithm on your centroids. That's a method to make sure that your data starts well spread out. The centroids start well spread out. You can set the number of your iterations to 10. That's just how many individual runs you're going to do. You can start your seed out as 1. You start it out the same one every time. You should get very similar results. And then there's this really cool idea that I like called centroid mapping strategy. And so what you can do is you can run this the first time and figure out where all of your groupings lie in this result set. And then moving forward, every time you rerun it, you can compare it back to your original results. And with something like an LLM, you can identify, even if your cluster says 2 now instead of 1, that is actually your large hospitals and not your small hospitals. And so the centroid mapping strategy is one way that you can make sure that every single time you run this, the descriptions for your clusters are always going to match to the master descriptions you created in your initial run. And so that's what you need to understand about k-means. So let's talk about implementing it real quick. So you have to select k. We've already talked about that. You need to, step 2, there's this assigning of data points. Step 3, there's a recalculation that happens, and then it just does that until the center point of each of your clusters no longer moves. Now that's not manual, it just runs. So you just have to set it up and say go and it works. And so how do you say go? TD_k-means. This is the algorithm, this is how you run it. I've already showed you all the parameters that you have to set. So you just have to have a data set with normalized numbers in it, and you can basically run this. So it's going to quickly segment your data into the appropriate number of K groups. It's going to minimize the variance between those groups, and in doing that, it's going to allow you to be able to make these kinds of true comparisons. It's going to find relationships in the data that you may not have realized already, or it's going to break the tie. Did you know that sometimes a CFO might say, I'm a large facility. And you're like, I know you feel like you're a large facility, and I know you believe you're a large facility, but you're really a medium facility. You can talk to them with empirical data, and you can kind of get them off their, off their high horse. And so again, what's the advantage here? This is where it's really cool, is parallel processing. So we know that Teradata does the massive parallel processing. K-means can be a bit difficult to run, but because you can do all this massive parallel processing in Teradata, it's just as fast as push and go. And again, there's no data movement. And so once you've run your K-means, you want to test to make sure that everything is looking right. And so there is a test within Clearscape Analytics that you can do. It's called the silhouette test. And so basically, it's going to score each of your clusters. And what it's going to do is assign a value between -1 and 1. If it is -1, you need to start over because it's bad. But if it's closer to 1, that means that it's good. And so it just gives you a way to feel confident about the performance of the algorithm, that everything you've done is right, and that you're going to be able to do these kinds of comparisons. And so I shared the result set with us. I know that probably doesn't mean a lot. Cluster 3 is almost at 1, so that one's like the best cluster. Some of these are at 0.4, 0.5. Again, the elbow method said 4, we said 5. So we expected that there would be some clusters that were not quite to 1, but that's okay. We accept that. We know that. And again, so what is the advantage? This can confidently tell us that we've achieved our objective. We've created something that we can use for benchmarking. And so this is what the results look like. And so we have one cluster, the gray, which is right here. That's our medium to small scale facilities. Our large facilities, they're up here. Our medium facilities are right here. And then we have our small facilities, and then we have some special facilities right down here. Again, they specialize in specific patient treatments, and so they're generally at the bottom here. But it works. And so now, what can we do with that? Well, this is really cool. We've got the peer groups, and now guess what? Everybody at HCA uses them. We do benchmarking with them. We do benchmarking for all of our service lines. We do benchmarking for our pharmacy costs. We do benchmarking for implants. Performance improvements uses our benchmarks to figure out if there's someone that they need to target to go and work with on site. I was in a meeting recently, and the security team, so these are the people who are making sure that we are in compliance with taking our HealthStream training, which is HealthStream's, the videos that we have to watch. They're using the peer groups. And so we're sitting in this meeting, and they're like, yeah, we found this field, this peer group here, and we're using that. We're like, that's our field. So it's kind of neat. And so they're using it for security, and of course we use it for reporting. And I wanted to give you a few examples of how we're actually using the peer groups with our reporting. And so basically what we have here, this is one flavor of how we're doing this. And so this application is our fixed cost application. And so what you're able to do is you're able to select a facility, or depending upon how your security works, you'll come in and you'll just be that facility. And so then you can select a comparison group. So we do expose all the comparison groups. So if you want to expose yourself to the next highest peer group, you're able to do that. We don't lock that down or anything. And then you select that, and then basically all the measures that you have will show up with that peer group average. And so you can quickly see how you are doing as a CFO, and then how all of your peers are doing. And that has a way of pointing out very, very quickly and very precisely where you need to work. And then we have another application, and this one is for our contribution margin application. And so basically what we're able to do here is we're able to select different categories within our chart of accounts. There we go. Sorry, I lost it there for a second. I'm like, and then we have different measures that you can select. And what this one does, it's really cool, in my opinion. And so we have 200 facilities, right? And so sometimes, you're going to be kind of in the middle of that peer group. And so if you just show an average, like, okay, well, like I'm okay, but where am I really? Like these people are competitive. And so we can show them like the next 5 highest facilities compared to them, and then the 5 facilities that are just below them in this application. And so they're able to see at an account level in their general ledger, like how they are doing compared to the 5 facilities that we're saying are higher than them in terms of the peers, and then the 5 that are lower than them. They really like this, and our CFO has just asked us to literally implement this in every single one of our applications. So when I get back, that's what my team is going to be doing. It is basically going to be putting this concept into all of our applications because that's how valuable our CFO sees it. And so really the moral of the story today is if you find a tool like Clearscape Analytics, what you're going to be able to do is enable the people who are on your team to do advanced analytics. You don't need a data scientist. You do need people who are competent. It's just like with AI. I mean, you can have someone who's incompetent using AI, and guess what? They're not going to do very well. But if you have a competent person who has a good tool, they're going to produce good results. And ultimately, what's happened for our team is I have really seen a shift in our attitudes. We've had people who want to get into this type of work. And now, with Clearscape Analytics, we have a tool where we are confident that if we spend the time using it, we're going to get the result. So everybody's excited because we now are part of this AI infrastructure at HCA, and we're able to find these types of solutions that are going to be helpful for our enterprise. And ultimately, I mean, we really are finding a lot of value in all the benchmarking work that we're doing. And it all starts with this peer group. It's really cool. And so that is all I wanted to share with you today. So thank you for coming. I do want to just throw this out here. I'm going to be doing a round table tomorrow, and if you like bread, we can talk about something else. I mean, like we're here on business, right? We talk about business. But if you want to stop by, and maybe you're a baker, maybe you want to know how to make a marble rye. Maybe you want to talk about sourdough. How about baguettes? If you have celiacs, maybe you know someone who has celiacs and you want to impress them. I can help. Peer groups, bread making, check out this tie knot. That's an Eldridge knot. I've noticed I'm literally the only person here. And by here, I don't mean in this room. I mean literally like at this whole conference who's wearing a tie today. Feels a little awkward. But if you ever want to know how to tie an Eldridge knot, you come on by tomorrow. I can help you out. So that's all I've got.